Hello, everyone. I'm Ben Kaplan, CEO of PR Hacker, and welcome to How to Be a Thought Leader in 2018, Tactics for Brands, Startups, and You. And I'm so excited to be with you. We're broadcasting live here from our new 4K studio at PR Hacker headquarters in San Francisco, and we're broadcasting all over the world. So we have people joining us, I think, for something like 20 countries around the world. So whether you're in Europe or Asia, it's the wee hours of the morning, you're very committed to becoming a thought leader. South America, we got our start actually, our company in Santiago, Chile. So if you're down there, hello and welcome, and let's create some thought leaders in 2018. And to kind of kick us off and get started, one of my goals for this presentation is I want it to be useful to a lot of people who are working for, big brands, up-and-coming brands. I want it to be useful for those kind of folks. At the same time, those who have startups where you don't even have a brand yet, how do you establish thought leadership really, really fast? And then for everyone listening today, how do you become a thought leader in your own career? So that could be in your industry, that could be even in your company. You want to have more influence. We want to discuss all of that today. And really, how I started learning about this was the 3 times in my life I had to become a thought leader in 3 totally different areas. And the first time was I was a college student. I went to Harvard, and how I paid for Harvard was I won all of these 24 scholarships worth $90,000, went to Harvard for free, and I wanted to write a book about it. So I wrote this book, I self-published it, and of course, no one really knew who I was. No one knew that I was an expert on scholarships yet. And so I had to go about, how do I establish that really, really fast? How do I use tactics including PR, social media, influencer marketing, some experiential events? I did this 25-city bus tour across the country. How do I become an expert on college and university scholarships in the world really, really fast? So that was the first time I had to do it. Second time, after that book became a bestseller, it was like, okay, let's become a thought leader on book publishing. Let's become a thought leader on self-publishing. So it was a entirely different field. I had some expertise from having to do my scholarship book, and now we have to go in an entirely different area. So that was a couple years later, and it was like, okay, how can I accelerate this process? It took me a few years to be a thought leader in scholarships. How do I do this even faster for book publishing? And I did that. And then finally, much later, as PR Hacker was really taking off, we were becoming a viral marketing firm. And for those of you who don't know us, for a lot of startups and big brands, we're the ones who get ideas about them to spread all across the world. And we were sort of graduating to bigger brands, like some of our clients are Budweiser and Mercedes and Smuckers and Del Monte and all of those companies. And so how do we become a thought leader on PR, viral marketing? So I kind of had to do it all over again. And what I discovered from this process was that actually the pace of becoming a thought leader was speeding up. It wasn't just that I had done this before and I was a little bit more prepared and a little further along in my career, but actually it was getting easier. It was getting faster to become a thought leader because of a lot of things happening in the world. And the example I love actually is if you look at kind of the gold standard for idea spreading, kind of viral marketing. In my mind, it was Gangnam Style, right? Like Psy's Gangnam Style, this like K-pop video spreading around the world, takes 25 months to get to 2 billion views on YouTube. And now, suddenly this year, you look and comes along Despacito, which goes to 4 billion, twice as many views in only 9 months. So it's twice as much in less than half the time. And what I would argue is not only for viral views on YouTube, because we are increasingly connected, because we have increasing tools that we can leverage, we can become thought leaders for ourselves, our startups, and our brands even faster. And we want to talk about how that mechanism works today. So with that being said, let's begin. And if you're on our page right now, you can download these slides at the link there on the page. You can download these slides, follow along. I'll help you follow along in the presentation. And also, I should say, the presentation itself will take about 40 minutes moving forward, and then we're going to have 15 minutes for a lot of specific questions to try to give you immediate tactics, strategies, and things that you can use at the end of the presentation. So let's proceed. And the first question is, what is a thought leader? Because I think the definition of that has changed, and understanding that impacts how we go about creating that. And so first aspect of it is one whose views on a subject are taken to be authoritative and influential. Perhaps that's the most obvious. But you have to be authoritative, you have to be influential, and your views have to be important. So it's got to be more important than the random person you would ask on the street or even the random person in the industry. How do you convey that authority and that influence really, really quickly, number one. Number two, what is a thought leader? One who pulls opportunities and possibilities to their door. So what I would argue is it's not just enough to be authoritative. It's not just enough to be influential. But how do you do it in a manner that you have business development partnerships coming to you? Do you have others who want to work with you? If you're a big brand, you have media outlets and influencers knocking on your door with great opportunities. And maybe it's not always like, pay us to work with us. It's like, no, we just want to work with you. Maybe it's other kinds of business opportunities. How do you become a magnet to attract all that? I think a thought leader does that really, really well. You pull those things towards you. Number three, one who attracts other talented people to seek them out. So not just brands, but other people who could work with you for your company. How are you a magnet for that as well? And finally, one who has a unique power to turn ideas into action. So this even takes thought leadership to the next sort of level. It's not just about your ideas spread. People recognize you, people respect you, but you have a unique ability to say, I have this idea, I have this concept, I have this thing that I want to do. You leverage your thought leadership and suddenly it becomes a reality. It exists in the real world. So that's my kind of broader definition of a thought leader, and let's talk more specifically about 3 steps to get there. So step number 1, think small to get big. Really important concept, because usually what happens when a brand, a startup, a person wants to become a thought leader, like, okay, I want to be a thought leader on all of social media. Okay? I want to be a thought leader on politics. I want to be a thought leader on, for what happens for a lot of brands, and like, consumer engagement. Right? So those are big topics, and it's competitive. There's a lot of people doing that. So you can become a thought leader on all of that. And in fact, you can do it in 4 to 6 months, but you got to think small to do it, which means focus on niche areas that you can win, that you can go win right now, because there's not a lot of competition. And if you stack those up, suddenly you're regarded as a thought leader in the entire area. So here's an example I love. Meet Kyle McDonald. And that is a really big red paper clip in his mouth, and that's not insignificant because he was the guy who actually transformed a red paper clip into owning a house. So if you're trying to like get your first house or something like that, listen up. This is how he did it. He did it through a series of trades. And what had happened was he had grown up playing the kind of the kids game Bigger and Better. And what that really meant was, it's like basically that game where like I trade you like my clicker, and you trade me your something else, your, I don't know, stereo system, and I take that stereo system and I trade it to someone else, and you keep getting bigger and better things. And so here's what his series of trades were. So he started with a single red paper clip. He traded it to a fish-shaped pen. He was doing this on Craigslist, and I think that's in most places around the world, but kind of a place where you can post things and trade things or connect with people online. And he took that fish-shaped pen he traded it into a really funky-looking doorknob that's on your screen. He traded that into, actually, I think it was kind of a kind of burner camping sort of kit. That became a generator. That became a Budweiser sign. That became a snowmobile. That became a trip to Yacht. I think it was in British Columbia. He traded that into a moving van, which became, through a series of trades, a few more things. Like he had this sort of dream. He had an office to rent, apartment to rent in Phoenix. That became a dream performance with Alice Cooper. And these final trades, he traded that to be a snow globe from Kiss that was a collector's item. He traded that to the actor Corbin Burnson for a part in a movie. And to a movie lover who owned a house, he traded that part to own his own house. So he started with a red paperclip, and through these series of trades, moving along this process, he ended up with something that was so much bigger and so much better. And I think that's really how thought leadership works, about how you focus on these small areas and continually trade up until you're a thought leader on more things. So look for small ways to trade your existing expertise for a new set of experiences. So, when I wrote my first book and I was trying to become a thought leader in scholarships, I not only drew upon my experience, I tried to trade up that. So I need to interview 20 other people who had a similar experience with scholarships. I traded that. And then I was thinking, okay, I need to have like a little bit more of a credential. I was self-publishing the book. I didn't have a major publisher when I first started. And so, okay, I need to trade that for a couple articles in a couple newspapers. So I wrote an article for the New York Times. I wrote one for U.S. News and World Report. Well, once I had that trade, now it's like, okay, now I have their credential behind me. I can trade that to get on TV. So I traded that for some TV appearances. And once I had the TV appearances, I was like, okay, let's trade that to actually have a reoccurring column. And I became a syndicated columnist at the Oregonian. But once I was a syndicated columnist, I didn't have to do just scholarships anymore, so I traded that to more types of personal finance. Once I did that, I traded that experience to do more kinds of being a spokesperson for a lot of big financial companies. That was traded to become actually a PR agency for those financial companies, and years later, actually we have PR Hacker, we're a global PR and marketing agency, and it all starts with those early trades. So how can you trade your experience for something bigger and better, the first step of thought leadership? And here's how to think small. Specifically, what is happening right here? Like, what is going on right here in my immediate region? Can I be a thought leader on what's happening in my kind of geographic location in some way, something that's really, really relevant right now? Second, what's happening right now? That's the second part, right? So what is timely? What is going on right now? Is there something in the news that's trending? Is it, you know, if you're trying to be a thought leader on sort of kind of the workplace, for instance, we have, you know, lots of these kind of sexual harassment scandals and Me Too happening right now. How can you go claim that in some specific way, think even smaller than that, because it's happening right now? And third, what unique resources can I access? So do I have access, like at PR Hacker, we have access, for instance, to a ton of media monitoring tools, social monitoring tools, all sorts of amazing client campaigns. We have unique access to that. How can we tap into that to become a thought leader and focus our thought leadership in a small, distinct, and unique area? All ways to leverage that smallness instead of trying to get too big too fast. Okay, so here's an example I like where recently, this past election year in the US, we were already a thought leader for viral marketing, but we wanted to become a thought leader for viral marketing and politics, right? So we started looking at that, and so here's how we did it. So we said, okay, the Bay Area, where our headquarters is based in San Francisco, is a social media, capital. It's really social media capital world, right? Because, lots of the Facebooks and the Twitters, they're all located here, just like a couple blocks away from us. And so how can we leverage that experience, because we're kind of in the heart of social media? Then two, what's happening right now? Well, obviously it was the 2016 elections in the US. This was the election that elected President Donald Trump. And so that's happening right now. And so how can we leverage that? And then third, what resources can I access? So we have all these media monitoring tools at PR Hacker. So the thought was, how can we become a thought leader on politics by offering some kind of insight into the election that they don't have, and that can move us from just viral marketing overall to viral marketing in politics. Okay, so this was a pitch, and it's in the slide deck where we actually sort of said, hey, during election season, we're writing to suggest a story idea this was for Fox News Channel, for Fox and Friends, on the most viral 2016 convention moments and the rise of viral politics. The new ability of candidates to create click-worthy and cringe-worthy campaign moments that spread like wildfire. So all of those things were little triggers. We had a time trigger in there to make it really more relevant to what's happening right now, so that the TV station wants to do it. We also had this idea of, okay, let's take our expertise in viral marketing and viral politics and let's expand that into the political realm. So let's take that and let's expand it. We also had these social media tools. So what we were able to do is say, okay, who's more viral, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton? What are we seeing on mass media? What are we seeing on social media? How many mentions do they have overall? Let's compare the two together. So that gave us an instant thought leadership presence that we didn't have before. And suddenly, now, we're doing all sorts of interviews on viral politics. And that was actually a term we coined that is now used by more and more people. So simple ways to, like the red paperclip example, just get a little bit bigger and better, right? Just expand that reach, extend it in some way. And we're constantly doing that at PR Hacker to sort of embrace and engage new verticals, new industry sectors, new fields. It's how you can expand quickly over time, okay? So you saw a few of the clips there. There's an example on Fox News. Also, a lot of thought leadership articles we were writing, like how Donald Trump became America's first viral president, something that me and my team wrote. We started spreading that out, and that was able to establish quick thought leadership, at a high pace. And now we are often asked to comment on political campaigns, political happenings from a viral perspective, by doing that unique positioning. Okay? So, question for you is, and there's comments on the page, so you can comment there as well if you have your own thoughts and sort of queue up questions for me as well. But how many examples of your expertise does it take to claim a new thought leadership space? And my question is, I'm asking for a number. Like, how many think? Like, does it take 10? Like, you got 10 examples of your expertise, is pretty good. 100? Okay. Maybe people are a little bit more skeptical. What does it take? 1? Can you just get one example? Like, look, I did it here. Is that enough? Well, I would argue that there is a correct answer, and that answer is 3. 3. And here's why. It's our rule of 3 for thought leadership, which is one example of your thought leadership is a fluke. Okay? Anyone can get lucky once, sort of lightning struck. Okay? But then 2 examples of your expertise, 2 niche areas. That's a coincidence, right? So sometimes, now you're starting to think, maybe, but like sometimes lightning does strike twice. But then here's the rule of 3. That third example, that's the trend. And for most people, and you don't need 100 examples, 50 examples, 25 examples, 10 examples. It's like if you have 3 great examples, 3 small areas, niche verticals, where you can establish that expertise, suddenly you can claim the entire space, and you'll be regarded as an expert on the entire space. So the point is this. If you want to be a thought leader in something like really, really big, like a thought leader on politics or all of social media, it's a multi-year process that takes a lot of time if you start big. But instead, if you start small, focus on these areas and find 3 key niche examples, areas of your expertise, then you can actually do that in 4 to 6 months. There's not a lot of competition in those areas. And by using that process of getting a little bigger and better, suddenly you'll be regarded as an expert. So that's how to become a thought leader potentially 10 times faster than otherwise. Okay, so here's an example. I want to just make this a little more concrete, where PR Hacker, we're sort of a global marketing agency in every discipline at this point, but our core that we're still famous for is we're the top data-driven PR firm. So let me give you an example of how the rule of 3 works for that. So example 1, right? We A/B test our pitches, okay? So we'll do a PR pitch, and we'll do 8 different versions of that pitch. We'll multivariate test it on small numbers of media outlets, figure out what works, and then pitch the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or USA Today or Financial Times or those big outlets, right? So that's one example of our expertise to establish that we're the top data-driven PR firm. Example number 2. We optimize the pitch time. So we're pitching at a time of day to get the maximum conversion. So we know to pitch that CNBC producer at 4:32 a.m. on a Wednesday. Okay, so that's example 2 to establish that we're the top data-driven PR firm. Example 3, we track media intent. So what this means is, okay, we know if a media outlet is interested even before they respond to us, because we can see how they're interacting with our pitch, how long they're reading our pitch. If we give them 2 different story angles, which they prefer, we can see all of that. So we've just done there is 3 quick examples. We don't need 10, we don't need 100. In fact, we have, probably 30 different data optimizations that we do at this point. But those 3 things are 3 examples that establish, they use data in a unique way for PR. That helps establish our thought leadership there, and we can do it quickly. Okay? Brings us to step number 2. So we're thinking small to get big, but now, how do we create ideas that spread, right? So let's say we're focused on that small niche. We're focused on that small area, but some ideas are easier to spread than others. What are the characteristics? What are the qualities of an idea that wants to spread? How are some ideas you almost can't even stop it from spreading if you wanted to? What are the characteristics, the patterns, the qualities of those? So let's take a closer look. So, question is, what makes an idea easy to spread? If you have some thoughts, post them in the comments. What makes an idea easy to spread? What is something that causes you to you got to tell your neighbor, you got to share it on social media? Thoughts, ideas? What is that thing where, I don't know, that gossip item you heard, and you're like, oh my gosh, did you hear about so-and-so? And you kind of want it, you really want to spread it. You have this big secret, right? Or what is about that thing, that one social clip you saw in I need to post this right now. Like, even though I'm late for work right now, I'm still going to post this to my friends because I need them to see this. So what are those qualities? And so I would argue that there's many reasons why an idea wants to spread, but there's 3 of the most important ones. 3 things that you can embed your thought leadership ideas for your brand, your startup, or yourself to make them have much higher, what we call viral velocity. Okay? So, number 1, simple. So this is so critical and so key, and it's almost like every brand we work with, it's like they think like, hey, we're being simple. It's like we could almost get to the heart of the messaging, the issues, even more simply. It is critical because we live in a world where we're bombarded by messages, ads, news feeds. We're distracted by our phones. So for an idea to spread, you've got to be able to understand it in a matter of a few seconds because there's just too many other distractions. And not only that, PR Hacker, when we're like pitching stories and we want these stories to spread in the media, we need people to understand them without too many leaps of logic. It's not like, okay, if I get point A, then therefore B follows, and then C is really clear. So like, I need an A, B, C. Problem is, I can't get that done in a few seconds. So it needs to be simple so people can get it quickly. Really, really important. Second thing, surprising. So there's sort of this sense that we've kind of seen it all, right? I mean, people have been bombarded by millions of ads, millions of social posts. I mean, maybe billions at this point. All kinds of other things we've seen. So how do you get someone's attention? You have to break the pattern in some way. You have to surprise them in some way, right? But then, simple and surprising is good, but it's not quite good enough because, hey, here's an example. Simple, surprising, I could say, blah! That's like, I surprised you. You did not expect me to do that in the live stream. It was certainly simple. You got it that I was saying blah. But why does that not want to spread? Well, because it's not significant, right? It's not significant. And so significant has some deeper importance, some kind of relevance, something it says about us. And that doesn't always mean it has to be like, the topic has to be something of huge significance like, war in the Middle East or something like that. I mean, it could be a viral dog or cat video, but it has some kind of significance that has some kind of insight into our culture, ourselves, how we interact with pets, the joy pets bring, even in that kind of example. So simple, surprising, and significant. And that mantra, that's like your checklist for your thought leadership checklist. If you're going out there and you're thinking, hey, I want to write a thought leadership article piece, or I'm ghostwriting it for my client. Is it simple? Is it surprising? Is it significant? I'm going to go give a speech at a conference. I'm pitching myself to give a talk or be on a panel. Is what you have to say simple, surprising, and significant? Okay, we're working on a brand campaign. We got this really cool idea for this like viral video, and the spaceships are going to come in from here, and the cats are going to come in from here, and then there's going to be like EDM music and all this kind of stuff that we actually worked on that campaign. But then how is that? Simple, surprising, and significant, right? And 2 out of 3 is not bad. 1 out of 3 is okay, but you get all 3 out of 3 working in harmony, working in parallel, and that's when magic happens. So how can you make your ideas more simple, surprising, and significant? Let's look at some examples. So this is a proverb that most of you have probably heard of called a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Okay? Let's look at why this proverb spread. So is it simple? Absolutely. I mean, this proverb has been around for a long time. It's about birds in hands, right? It doesn't get much simpler than that, number 1. Is it surprising? Absolutely. So the logic here, a bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Like, I'm not a sort of a mathematician, but you're saying, wait, 1 is better than 2? I thought 2 is better, but no. You're saying 1, if you have it in your hand, is better than 2 that you don't have. Okay, so that's surprising. That's normal. Now, is it significant? Absolutely. This is a widely applicable bit of wisdom. I can apply it to anything. So I can apply it to like my next brand marketing campaign or something like that. If, for instance, we have the idea that, okay, we have this great campaign and we're going to activate consumers and we're going to take them on the consumer decision journey from, awareness to consideration to purchase, and we have all these sorts of things, and we have these, amazing things we can do. And then, but when we're saying, you know what? A bird in hand is worth 2 in the bush. Maybe we should focus on our existing campaign now. Really nail that first before we do this like whiz-bang campaign, right? It's applicable to brand campaigns, but it's also applicable to other stuff, right? It's like, okay, I'm thinking with my family about really, getting that new house or that new car or something else. Well, maybe a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. I should focus on what I have now and maximize my current house or my current car, right? We can apply it to anything. So it's hugely significant. So that is a viral idea that wants to spread. And that's why this proverb has lasted for 2,500 years. Translated, basically all cultures, all languages have a version of that. And that's why it's so powerful. And proverbs, by the way, are a great sort of kind of laboratory for understanding virality, because if they're a proverb, they almost by definition have to be simple, surprising, and significant for them to spread and for them to last, not just even generations, but millennium. Okay, let's look at another example. So set aside your political hat for a second. This isn't meant to be pro one party or pro another or current politics. But I want to look at the example of the rise of Donald Trump because I think it's interesting from a viral perspective and a thought leadership perspective in how he basically came from a part in the sort of American election or U.S. election cycle where he was not regarded as a serious candidate. People thought he didn't have a chance. He was kind of like, early on, the joke candidate. Maybe people thought like he was only running because he wanted to like promote his properties. Like he actually wasn't, people thought, even interested in being president. To how he actually, becomes elected president. And what I would argue is that the most viral idea and the most rapid thought leadership idea of the 2016 U.S. election was the Great Wall of Trump. And probably everyone knows at this point, but Donald Trump was saying, he came out and he sort of said, I want to build a wall with Mexico, and I want to kind of secure our borders, and it became this wall. And like many other politicians had I have a 7-point plan for adding more security. But Trump said, I just want to build a wall. And so why was that a way to establish rapid thought leadership and ultimately a viral idea? So it's simple, right? It's a wall. It doesn't get any simpler than that. Everyone knows what a wall is. It's very clear. I mean, you said it's like Trump wants to build a wall. It's like, I got that in under 2 seconds flat. I understand what it is. Trump wants to build a wall with Mexico. It's very, very simple and easy to understand. Now, is it surprising? Absolutely. It's not normal for a politician. Right? Politicians, come up with laws. They come up with complex proposals. They come up with all these sorts of things. But they're not usually just something as simple as a wall. Regardless of the merits of it, it's just totally surprising. So suddenly it breaks through all the clutter, everything else. It's simple, it's surprising. Now, is it significant? Absolutely. What it signifies, and it's very symbolic, this wall, is he's tough on immigration, right? He's gonna protect us. He's gonna keep, certain folks out and protect us inside. And so it's a hugely symbolic thing. It almost doesn't matter if it's implementable or anything else, because it's just a viral idea that wants to spread. And so I would argue that without that sort of rapid thought leadership, without that idea that's simple, surprising, and significant, Donald Trump would not be president right now. And so how can we, for our work, our personal lives, add to that viral velocity, create ideas that are more like that? Let me give you a couple more examples. So important to realize is that it's not just the messenger, it's also the message. So a lot of times we sort of say okay, it's put on my best jacket here, I'm going to be a thought leader, going to be an expert, it's all about me. What are my credentials? But it's actually also the message you say, and picking viral messages that are simple, surprising, and significant that want to spread, it helps you become a thought leader much, much faster. So create ideas that are simple, surprising, and significant to make your thought leadership spread organically. And what I would just argue before we go on to the next section is, of all those things, of the sort of the simple, surprising, significant, what is the most important of those? I would actually say overall simplicity, right? Getting an idea honed to its core. That doesn't mean dumbed down. That doesn't mean really basic. It's just simplifying it to its core idea, its core message. At PR Hacker with our team, when we're pitching stories or doing influencer campaigns or doing social media, we're trying to call it that core essence of the idea, that simplicity. Because if it's not simple enough, people don't understand it at all. And I would challenge you to have one more metric, one more KPI that you pull out for your work and for yourself, and it's this. Your goal is not to have, if you want to be a thought leader, have people understand your idea. That is a good outcome, but that's not your goal. I have a higher bar for you. So if this is understanding, Here's the thought leadership bar. How can someone hear your idea once and then communicate it to someone else as you would want it communicated? It's a much higher bar, right? They have to understand what you've said, internalize it, be compelled to share it with someone else, and then actually share it. And oh, by the way, do a really good job of sharing it as if you were doing it yourself. So that's why simple, surprising, and significant. If you can work that in, you can reach that higher bar, and your ideas will want to spread. You become a thought leader much, much faster. Brings us to step number 3, which is accelerate your authority. So how can you push down the gas pedal to the metal, really speed up this process? What are those things you can do? And so I want to show you an example of how do you get on a national TV show without prior experience. Here's how it works. So give them what they want that only you can supply. So here's how this works. I'm going to kind of show you an example from early on in my career, but I want to give you some examples for those of you who are brand marketers at big companies. You're trying, those of you at agencies who are watching, who want to get your clients on national TV, but they don't have really a platform yet. What can you do? So give them what they want that only you can supply. So let me give you an example. So we have a client that is a marketplace for used gadgets. So it's kind of like, hey, if new iPhone comes out, you can sell your old iPhone and make some money on that so you can buy the new one. So they had zero TV experience when they came to us, and we want to put them on the biggest TV shows in the US and in the world. How can we do that? The answer? Well, give in this case the media, give them what they want that only we can supply. So what we did was we actually said, okay, the new iPhone's coming out soon. Apple is super secretive about what's in the iPhone. So let's do a quick survey and ask people what features they most want in the iPhone. So we did that survey and we found out these 5 things were the top 5 things, and we had percentages and we had stats. And suddenly we go to that national TV show. In this case, the first place we went to was CNBC, big business channel. And we said, you know what? We have these results on what are the most desired features in the upcoming Apple iPhone that's being launched in 2 weeks. And so they said, oh, really? And so we had something that they wanted that only we had. And so after talking with them, working on the segment, I had to convince them that the CEO of our client would be good on camera, and we sort of had other evidence that he would be, even though he wasn't on TV. Then he was placed on that show. And oh, by the way, that segment was so successful in terms of the eyes of the producer and the viewers that then they wanted to have him on as a regular guest. It was just that easy on a national TV show with millions of viewers. So figure out how you can give what the media, what the conference, what the award selection committee, how can you give them what they want, but is so unique that only you can supply it? Okay, so here's how I did. Build a simple data program that makes you valuable to the media that covers you. So here's an example for another client, Marchex, which is a sort of a phone call, online to offline analytics system. So if you search for something in Google and click the call button, their system tracks that. For them, we did this whole data study about which US states, which residents curse the most, and it was something super interesting to establish that they were a thought leader on what's going on in calls, and this went to media outlets all over. Or take another one of our clients, RepairPal. They're actually, what they do is they have a network of sort of car repair experts and give you, special insight into how much you should be paying for a car repair. So we rank states across the US on the most affordable for car repairs. In the screen, Utah is ranked number 11. So we're using quick bits of data that only we had to become a thought leader really, really fast and establish that media expertise fast. Here's a question from my own experience, which is, who should you pitch? So this is the first time I ever appeared on CNN, and this was my first appearance where it went all over the world, so I became an instant sort of worldwide thought leader. And I did it by pitching it myself, and what I started with was, okay, I pitched 15 CNN producers to get on the show, right? So it's sort of saying, and by the way, what I did was I tried to give a timely news hook of something really relevant now. I tried to show that, hey, I was the kid who won all these scholarships. I have some direct expertise. I have a story. I tried to make it relevant to what CNN was covering and what kind of segments they did. I did all those sorts of things, and I pitched through email. And while I did this, I personalized things, but I used kind of bulk email to sort of do this. But here's what was the most successful. I actually pitched the 2 morning show hosts. I pitched them at 4:35 a.m. in the morning, so I actually just used a tool in my email to schedule it to go out then. And by pitching them, which were actually not even the right people to pitch, right? You're supposed to pitch the producers. I received a response back at 4:37 a.m. 2 minutes later, and this is from John Roberts, one of the anchors back then. Let's do it, forwarding to my producers. So by doing that, by taking that initiative of thinking about how can I, accelerate my thought leadership? How can I have something unique that they wanted? In this case, I had my unique experience as a student who had done this. How can I optimize my pitch to stand out for the crowd? In this case, I'm delivering it because, hey, they're a show that goes on air at 5 a.m. I'm doing it in the 4 o'clock hour because I know they're in front of their email inbox. By stacking all those things up, suddenly I became a valuable resource to CNN. And once I became a resource to CNN, then suddenly, hey, Wall Street Journal, hey, New York Times, I was on CNN too. Shouldn't you quote me? I'm an expert. And then once I was on CNN, I could get on Fox News. And once I was on Fox News, I could also get on MSNBC and others. And I think you can see there on the screen, there's kind of my first appearance there and talking about it. And suddenly, once I'm there, I'm spreading that to my email network. And suddenly, okay, he's the guy who's the expert on college scholarships and financial aid. So by taking those extra steps, you can accelerate your thought leadership. And that moves us to kind of the next part here, which is what really worked. How do we continue to trade that for more and more experience? And so here's a little shot I like. This is kind of from the segment. And the question is, can you find the traction steps? So traction steps are, how do we pull people from, they experience my thought leadership in this TV segment, how can we pull them to something else so they can get more, so I can become more of an expert? So if you kind of look in this, and I think we have it there on the slides, you can see my title for this segment, even though it wasn't author, it was publisher of my website at the time, cityofcollegedreams.org. I actually approached the website producers at CNN to say, hey, I can write a blog post on this. That was fantastic because there at the bottom of the screen you can see they're scrolling the blog post. That's driving people to read more and learn more about it. That is incredible search engine optimization, SEO, for my site. And here's the blog post itself, where you can see it on the screen, and they're actually kind of promoting my expertise. So that's an additional credential for CNN. So again, we're using that bigger and better red paperclip. We're trading it for more and more experiences. And what that meant for me personally, early on in my career at the time, I'm just in my early 20s, was 10,000 new website users, 25,000 in product sales from that CNN appearance. We had, I think, about 60,000 more in revenue from business partnerships. So that part about being a thought leader is people seek you out. Lots of other businesses came and said, we saw that, we want to do business with you. And finally, I became a regular guest on CNN, so I got to do this every month, right? So that's how accelerating your thought leadership, finding a unique space, giving them what they want but that only you have, and then trading it for bigger and better things. And of course, having ideas that are simple, surprising, and significant. One of the key ideas from that segment was that everyone can win scholarships. It's not just for those who have amazing grades. Here's how. Okay? So, how else can you accelerate your thought leadership? What else could you do? I think now is a great time to open it up to questions on the site. Do you have specific instances for fields you're trying to become a thought leader in? Do you have certain startups and companies that you're working with that no one knows about them, and you got to make them a thought leadership fast? Are you at a big global brand or a big brand in the US or somewhere in Europe or around the world that you want to move into new territory, right? You're in position A and you want to become in position B. If you can let me know your questions, and I'm happy to answer them now. And I'm going to kind of pull out my phone and go to sort of kind of my producers here and thank you, and kind of pull up and Hubert and Nick, let me know what the questions are. So we can kind of get them streaming in here. And if you haven't thought of a good question, then post it there online. And while we're doing that, I'll just post out if you kind of want to contact me while we're doing, after this, you have a question, ben@prhacker.com is my email address. Twitter is @BenjaminKaplan. And okay, so we have some questions coming in here. And let me pull the first one, which is, how do I optimize let's see here. How do I optimize the niche to become a thought leader at first? So I'm trying to kind of fully understand the question. Thank you for submitting the question. But it's, how do I optimize my thought leadership, I think, for the particular niche? And one of the things that you want to do is, and a great thing to do, is you take your broad principles of, let's say you have these 5 tips that are your core tips that you give. How do you apply them to a specific, really unique area? So happens very commonly with our clients is, okay, let's say, for instance, one of our companies makes drone mapping software. So how do we apply their general principles of how to effectively use drone mapping software to agriculture, to construction, to health, to all of these areas? And what we'll do is we'll take those 5 tips, but we'll drill it down with specific examples just for that. So what it allows us to do for the thought leadership is optimize it and actually scale it a bit, because what we'll do is we'll write a kind of a base thought leadership article or a speech that has these 5 points, and then we'll customize it for every vertical, every niche to really, really fit. Okay, so that's one way to do it. Let's look at the next question. So the question is here, how do you create thought leadership in a brand new area you are not familiar with? Okay, so maybe this is something like just totally foreign to you. What can you do? Well, the way I sort of describe it is, how can you be an experience collector quickly? So what can you do to gain experience really, really fast? So your thought leadership isn't based on nothing. It's based on something. But how do you get that something at a really fast rate? So what can you do, for instance, if there are others who have expertise that you can kind of bring into your fold quickly, that you can talk to them, you can interview them. Sometimes you become a thought leader, you interview someone who's the expertise, and then you yourself become sort of an expert on that topic too. What can you do about other sort of examples or niche areas at conferences, events, other opportunities that you can leverage? How can you be a thought leader that within your company now? Oftentimes, if there are even simple things like presentations in your company, that brown bag lunch series, and other things. How can you do it within your company as a starting point so that you can be the expert in your company, and then you build on from there? So what it is how can you collect experience at a much faster pace? Okay, let's go to the next question here. And okay, the question is, we have a foreign language toy startup, and we are trying to get the word out. How can we use the idea of thought leadership to benefit our physical products and our startup? Okay, great question. So, and when we say a foreign language toy startup, what I'm assuming that you mean is that this is actually like, this teaches kids about a foreign language. Like maybe you can, start to learn that foreign language through a toy and through sort of that experience of doing it. I'd love to see, first of all, some ownable terms, ownable words that are simple, surprising, and significant about how kids learn. And the idea here is that how can you have these, 3 or 5 or 7 principles of how kids learn better, and then how do you ladder that back to each feature of your product, right? So that's one thing right away, is like basically, how do you convert product features into tips and advice that are beyond your product, but that still connect to your product? So that's number 1 in terms of the sort of the topic, simple, surprising, significant. Now, number 2, how can you leverage seasonal events, waves that suddenly make your thought leadership more important to establish it faster? So, for instance, right now, we're in the holiday time, right? There's probably going to be a lot of toys given. So, is there thought leadership opportunities to sort of say, okay, parents, instead of getting that toy that everyone has that's just fun, that's a trendy toy, what if you actually had a toy that brought the world closer, made the world a smaller place, that is super fun, but has a deeper meaning? So this period of time right now is a great time for the holidays. But then what other windows can you leverage? Okay, well, then suddenly it's New Year's. And it's like, maybe the New Year's resolution for you and your family is to help your kids get exposed to other cultures. So there's thought leadership around that. Maybe coming up next summer, it's all kinds of summer travel and things like that. How can your toy prep people for summer travel? So what it is looking at the typical triggers you have is 1, what's a time trigger? How is it relevant right now? 2, what's the location trigger? Is there something for specific groups or pockets of people? For instance, if your toy can help someone teach French, there's 65,000 French people in San Francisco. So how can you adopt thought leadership for those like the French living here who have kids, and maybe their kids are growing up speaking English, but they want to make sure they speak French too? How does your toy impact that? So finding timely, local, and then also activating emotions with that. So how can your thought leader should be, it's not just about, a toy, but it's about the dreams for the parents. How can you have maybe tangentially related areas like parenting, like other things that you have insights for? So all of that is important, but I would even love for your toy to do that for a segment for like actual TV shows on, one of the things in America is not a lot of people in the US are bilingual or multilingual. How can we kind of leverage that and say, hey, the new trend is otherwise, and you know what? It starts with play, not with study. That's actually would be I'm just going to throw that out to you. That's maybe a good topic there. It's like learning through play and the power of learning through play. That would be great sort of applied to this area, and you want to kind of have some ownable topics on that. Let's go to the next question here. Question is, if I start small and focus on a niche subject, okay, you're listening to the presentation, thank you for that. How do I prevent from being pigeonholed in that area and unable to get bigger and broader? Okay, that's like the classic question, like the actor who is typecast. It's like, okay, typecast in a certain role. How do you do it? And so, strategically, what you have to do is continually find related areas that suddenly get you to new spaces. So, an example of that, like just from some sort of my experience and early on as an author was, okay, I was the expert on scholarships. The question you can always ask yourself is, scholarships is a subset of what? So scholarships, getting money for scholarships for college, is a subset of financial aid because there's other ways besides scholarships, just loans. So you expand into that. But now once you're in financial aid, what is that related to? What is that a subset of? Okay, well that's a subset of family financial planning. So then you expand there, and you already have the expertise in scholarships and financial aid, so you expand into that. Now, if you're in family financial planning, but it's kind of from a student perspective, what's that a subset of? Well, that's a subset of your overall personal finance, and oh, by the way, college sort of planning impacts retirement planning. So then I expanded into that. Now you're in overall financial planning or sort of personal financial planning. What is that a subset of? That's like just subset of broader financial planning overall, so now you're kind of going into business verticals, other things. So you see that? So what I would kind of suggest is if you have that one area, don't just sort of be complacent and stay in that niche area, but sort of ask the question is like, what is slightly, sort of the bigger topical area, the bigger classification, and then how do I adjust myself to that space? So that's really powerful. The other thing I think that is powerful to think about is half of being a thought leader, I think 50% of it, and this is going to surprise you a little bit. A few people in the crowd, they kind of know where I'm going with this. 50% of being a thought leader is calling yourself a thought leader and calling it in an area that you want to be a thought leader of. So one of these big things is if you're a thought leader on, like a niche area of like let's say you're a thought leader on sort of Facebook PPC buys. Just calling yourself a thought leader on PPC buys, including Facebook and also Twitter and also Instagram and also these other things, just claiming that space starts moving you into that space. So what you can do to avoid being pigeonholed is make sure you're kind of saying, what is your expertise a subset of? How do I sort of just move it up to that slightly higher space? And two, really thinking about, what do I call myself? And by identifying myself as a thought leader of a little bit broader space, you become that, okay? Let's go to the next question here and just kind of wrapping up. And that next question is, let me pull it up, is here, is, okay, and it's coming in right now. And it says, okay, sort of, I'm a baby thought leader in lawyer marketing. How can I take that now to the next level? I like the term of sort of a baby thought leader. Like I'm assuming you're not actually a baby. A big G. Okay, not like actually a little baby. But okay, so this is how you do that is when you go, you're already a thought leader a little bit. Is how do you have a platform that gives you kind of that bigger national presence, and you only need kind of like 1, 2, 3 to suddenly become bigger and broader. How do you find that sort of connection to that bigger platform? And one of the things that I really recommend, it kind of goes back to the presentation, is there some kind of ownable data you can have, insight you can have, survey you can do that is broadly applicable, number one. And two, what you're looking for is you want the halo of other people's brands on you. So if you're that kind of smaller thought leader or baby thought leader, as you term it, on like marketing for lawyers, how do you, one, get an interview with someone who's a bigger thought leader that establishes, wow, their brand halo rubs off on you. So maybe that big partner at the global law firm that you want to interview, that suddenly that fact. And by the way, one thing with that was sort of having that halo rub off. You can approach 100 people. You only need, the rule of three, 1, 2, 3 to say yes. No one has to know about the 97 people that turned you down, right? It's just the 3 people that said yes. So how do you use that kind of their halo towards you? How can you use that halo for other things besides, just like a person? So are there other entities, speaking opportunities, and you keep sort of inching it up. So maybe you've spoken at the local bar association in your city, but then you kind of inch that up to the state, and you're trying to get that to national. So if you can give them what they want that only you can supply, but then give it to places that have that sort of brand halo that rubs off on you. And so an example of that too is, so for me, for being on CNN, for instance, CNN has a great brand halo, right? It's like, okay, if CNN thought he was important enough to put him on, then he must be important. So how can you kind of make yourself critical and important to those kind of groups? And some of that is just being like really timely, being really relevant, having a great topic, and you just kind of sort of inch up your credentials that way. Okay, let's go to, since we're almost out of time, just like kind of like the last little bit of questions here. And one question here is, and I love this because we do a lot of sort of pet brands and stuff like that. A question I'm getting here is, how do we become a thought leader in sort of health in the pet space, okay? What can we do like there? And so I think one thing to answer that question, and anytime you have a topic that's like a broad consumer topic, such as pets, very, very broad, a lot of people have pets, we have health, is how can you use the calendar to your advantage, right? So for that, it's like, okay, what are the moments where pets become an important part of the conversation, when the health of pets become important, and how do I double down on those areas? So an example is, okay, this has happened, we happen to have a lot of pet brands, probably why someone asked the question, as clients, and so we know that every year the day that most pets go to the veterinarian because they get sick is the day after Thanksgiving in the US, because there was all this food around, people didn't watch where the turkey was, and the pet just like grabbed it off the table. So that is a window where your expertise becomes important. So how can you drive, it could be media appearances, articles, speeches, emails to your list, drip campaigns, all driven around that moment in time. But oh, by the way, there's actually 70 plus different pet holidays all throughout the year, like National Respect Your Cat Day and National Mutt Day and all these things. You can actually check it out. One of our platforms at PR Hackers, we have a platform called National Today. It's at nationaltoday.com. If you check it out, we kind of gather up all the holidays in the US and around the world. These are all opportunities. So anytime it's a specific area, it's like, when does your expertise become really, really relevant? Map that out for 2018 and start that now, and then you'll be prepared ahead of time. And usually what happens is when people don't map that out ahead of time, then you're always behind. You're right, like, oh shoot, I'm busy, but Thanksgiving's coming up, I can't get it together. So that probably is a good place to sort of stop and end you with one of the most important things I'll say today, which is, the name of this presentation was How to Become a Thought Leader in 2018. In my mind, what you do right now to plan for the year, so this isn't a thing like it's a haphazard thing you start in March, but putting in motion the things right now can accelerate that process. I think it is a fantastic New Year's resolution, actually, to be, let's be a thought leader next year, let's accelerate my career, let's accelerate my startup, let's accelerate my brand. What are the things you can do in the next few weeks? One of the things that I believe about a goal or a New Year's resolution is the whole key is you got to start ahead of when it officially starts. So what can you do in this month of December to get yourself in a great position so January 1st comes around and you are sort of rocking and rolling in doing that? Some next steps I would encourage you to think about are, one, think small to get big. So kind of focus on those specific areas. What are those areas that you can tackle right now? Two, let's make your ideas simple, surprising, and significant. Let's make that viral velocity. Let's make it spread. And three, let's accelerate your thought leadership by just finding that thing that makes you useful and valuable and delivering it to people who can extend what you do, rub their brand halo on you, and do all of that. And what I would suggest is that, back in the day, you would have to hey, if you want to be a thought leader, write a book. I'm an author. I've written a number of books. But you don't have to do that to be a thought leader. Back in the day, it's okay, I need to give keynote addresses to the biggest conferences in my topic in the world. Those are good things, but you don't have to do that as well to be a thought leader. The key is to take small action steps that build up over time. Use the platform you already have. Extend it in small strategic ways. And you know what? Let's make a plan that this time, next year, 2018, you're going to be enjoying the respect you have, the position of your business, your inbox that has incoming opportunities and possibilities that's happening all the time. Let's make it a point to do that. At PR Hacker, we would love to help you in any part of this. As I mentioned, we're a viral marketing agency that basically creates disproportionate leverage. How does $1 not equal $1 of exposure or awareness or virality? How does it equal $100 or $1,000? How does 1 hour of my time not just equal an hour of output, but equals 10 hours or 100 hours of my time? We'd love to help you with your influencer marketing, PR, social media, brand strategy, experiential events, SEO, and make you much more efficient and effective. And I'd love to hear your questions. And in our new studio, this is it. We got some cool people here in San Francisco. Cool people. That's the cool people shot. We are going to be doing this every 2 weeks. We're going to have a new presentation for some kind of valuable content for you. So check that out. Also check out, if you go to the PRH Today section of our site, we have some features like campaigns that change the world, iconic campaigns, marketing and advertising campaigns, and what you can learn from them. Datadipity, which is a feature on a statistical insight that you can use in your marketing efforts. It's really, really valuable. Something called Hack This, where we give you a tip you can use, a sort of a hack, a tactic in 60 seconds or less. So check out all of that and stay tuned for the upcoming events. We're going to put it on our site. We have a bunch of upcoming events, all on topics like call to action, how do you get people to act now? We have events coming up on crisis communications, how you can turn a crisis into an opportunity, lessons from the pet industry. Every 2 weeks there's going to be a new one. We hope you tune in. And if you're in San Francisco, come stop by to one of our live streamings. I'm Ben Kaplan, CEO of PR Hacker, and until the next time, cheers. Go become a thought leader.